Welcome to DDL, where we discuss everyday topics like current events and or controversial points of view. This is Noel. I'm Void. First things first, shout out to our sponsor, Candle Time. Head over to the link in the description to purchase a candle today.
Streaming software we use, but yeah,
it's all good.
Yeah,
Void and I would always do this. Like, we'd be on the main screen, ready to roll, and we'd be having a side conversation. It's like, whoa, oh, we're live. Let's go. Okay. Welcome to Wellspring Wednesdays. This is the name of the episode. We are joined by Moo and Justin. He's back.
Hey.
Are you going to say hi?
No.
You got to talk into the mic.
No. They already know me. I'm a star. That's why you got many subscribers.
So humble, too.
Yes. Okay, so like we finished our Monday episode, we were going to talk about, do men look for different things when they're dating a woman versus when they're wanting to marry a woman?
Right.
And you said they do, and you left it as, but should they?
Yes.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I was just going to be like, yes, they do. Should they? I never even popped in my head.
Yeah.
I think they should. Personally,
yeah, it should be consistent because, I mean, at the end of the day, the marriage, the whole practice for that is how we date. And if we date well, and if we date intentionally, we're going to find a girl that's quality, that's worth marrying. Unfortunately, my own personal advice that I'm giving now was not how I lived my life.
Okay.
I lived my life quite the opposite way. It was, hey, let's date whoever and see how it goes. And if it's a train wreck, well, then we'll find that out along the way. Knowing multiple times, it's like, this is not somebody I can see myself spending the rest of my life with.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think mine's a little bit more viewed slightly different, right? Well, I do agree with your take that if you're dating with intention, which is what you should be doing, then yes, they should be aligned. However, in the modern dating scene, I don't think that that is actually how men and women date.
Yeah. In what way were you thinking?
So my personal take is there's two types of attraction for men. One is the initial attraction, which is, are you hot?
Right.
And, okay, you're hot. I'm going to talk to you.
Right.
And try to get a date with you.
Right.
That's level one. That's dating. All you have to do is be as hot.
I'm okay with that part.
Where it starts coming into play is that's great. Men are going to date you because you're hot. But how do you keep your man? I guess is the next step. And that's where the second phase comes into play. Whereas there is another level that men are going to look at to say, are you worth keeping around?
Right. And that's where what I'm looking for. Yeah. Your attractiveness will determine my risk. I'm not going to throw it all out there for a girl who's, she's okay looking, but if she's very attractive, hey, I'll talk to her. And of course, having a unique Christian perspective, I am looking for somebody who is like-minded in that way. That's probably the most important thing to me, because once our values align, we can have differences within Christianity, but hey, is God first in this relationship? But, it's one of those very, like, the way that I dated when I was younger was just, are you hot? Let's find out where this goes.
Yeah.
And like you said, finding a quality person, just because you're attractive doesn't mean you're a quality person.
My personal experience, probably 90% of the time, if you're attractive, you are typically conceited.
Yes.
And while you're fun to play with, you are not fun to try to have a long-term relationship with.
Right.
Because typically, the hotter a woman is, the more they think that they're entitled.
Right. Generally.
And they typically like to, well, if you don't like this, I can just go find, well, okay, you can.
Right.
But this kind of transitions a little bit into help for women.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're actually wanting a stable relationship, your best time to find that is between the ages of about 18 to 28.
Yeah.
And you need to be humble, right? And recognize that it's not just about you.
Yes.
Right. Now, when I say about 90% of the time, I understand that there are times where you will hit like the perfect woman. When you do that, good luck to you.
Yeah. And that is true. It is kind of a unicorn to find that woman who is attractive and also humble, because and that again goes back to most of the time when I have found that there's some sort of Christian background to it. They've been raised to be humble. They've been raised like, hey, you are beautiful. However, that's not your only value.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we have a lot of people who really do only find their value in what they, in what they look like, instead of the quality of the character. And that's where, you get into the red pill guys, the fresh and fits, those type of people where it's like, well, you want to do this with these girls and you want to, be promiscuous and do all that. But, that's not who you want to marry. It's like, why are you choosing two completely separate people for who you want to date versus who you want to marry? Hey, if you want to have fun, I did it when I was younger. That's your prerogative. But, as far as if you want happiness, if you want fulfillment, it's probably not going to be in the temporary flings.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I'm glad you brought up Fresh and Fit. I did watch them for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
They have some very good points, I think.
Yes.
One of the best sayings, and I don't agree with the saying, but I love it, is men don't cheat the exercise options.
What's that?
Men don't cheat the exercise options. Right? And I'm just like, from my standpoint, using their own logic, right, is a man's job in a relationship is to protect the woman.
Right.
Which means if you're protecting the woman, you should be protecting them from yourself, your infidelity.
Right. Absolutely.
So I use their own logic against them a little bit. I don't think I understand what he's trying to say, that men of a certain status, once you get to that point, women are going to look at you. Right. You are going to have options that most men do not have.
Right.
So I understand what they're trying to say. I just don't agree with it.
Well, the problem is it's self-defeating. Like, if you look at the statistics of it, just numbers-wise, they're like, oh, well, you can hang out with and have fun with, 500 different women before you get married. Well, here's the problem with that. If you tell that to every single man in America, because their other advice is also, hey, but you want a virgin for when you actually get married. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're giving thousands and thousands and thousands of men in America that advice, guess what? After a certain point, there's no more virgins left. And so their own argument defeats itself just statistically in that sense as well.
I would agree with you. The argument defeats itself. However, in practice, it would not happen.
Right.
Because most women do not look at most men.
Right.
So while, yes, they could tell
Trust me, I know.
They could tell that to every single man in America.
Right.
There's only going to be about 3 to 5% of those men that could actually do it.
Sure.
The rest of them are just not even going to get looked at.
Right, but they're selling everybody on the dream of, hey, if you join our podcast, if you join our mailing list, if you sign up, you'll be one of those exclusive high value men. And so it's
I don't think that's what they're trying to sell it on. And the reasoning why is because I said I was an avid watcher of the show.
Okay.
And what I was sold on was the simple fact I had just gone through my divorce.
Yeah.
My confidence level was
low.
Sure. Watching them and getting the encouragement from them to improve myself was very important.
Right. And I think that for that reason they do serve a good function. But the problem is when you take it to its logical end, what's the working out of it? And I think for that reason, yes, help to give men confidence. The suicide rates of men is higher than it's ever been. I think for that reason it's good, but it almost turns into this toxic anti-woman type of thought pattern as you start to work it out through its logical end. I know that's probably not their intent, but I see a lot of other people who are very male empowering, who don't have kind of the negative view of women, like an Abba and Preach, who comes on the show, and Abba, he was kind of rebuffed by them, and it was one of those things where Abba's just saying, hey, look, I think you should treat everybody with respect, and Myron was like, no. And to me, that was kind of where I was watching Fresh and Fit, but that's kind of where I tapped out. It seemed as though their value was, hey, we want high value men, but they didn't value the women as much.
That's an interesting take. And thinking back on it, I'm not 100% sure I agree with that take.
Okay.
And the reasoning why I say I don't necessarily agree with it is they seem to encourage women as much as they're trying to encourage men. Mm-hmm. Right? So what I mean by that is a lot of women, take a look at the stats in the America today. Mm-hmm. We have very high single motherhood rate.
Yes.
So while some women are really capable of raising children on their own, they will produce healthy, good members of society.
Shout out, Mom.
Yeah, right. There are a plethora that do not. That
sure. That's true.
That end up, especially boys, typically are ending up either involved in gangs, doing drugs, in prison, not living a successful life, not graduating high schools.
Right.
Right. There's a very negative connotation along with single women.
Right.
For when it comes to men. So these, like a Fresh and Fit.
Yeah.
Or Jordan Peterson. Sure. These guys are stepping in and are providing a kind of a surrogate father figure.
Right.
A little bit. But they're also doing it for women as well. Because women being raised with single moms are typically being not getting the structure in their lives that they need. They're not getting that protection that they need. So they're doing things that make them less attractive for a long-term partner.
Right.
Right. So while some of the things they say are definitely worded in a way where I can understand how a lot of people think that they're attacking women, they're actually trying to offer advice to women in order to produce a healthy, stable family life.
And I could, maybe that was kind of more the thrust of the show earlier. It's just kind of the more recent episodes that I've caught have been a lot more inflammatory. And so maybe
I haven't watched in like a year or so.
Yeah. And most of what I did watch a couple episodes over a year ago, but most of what I've watched has been more recent. Okay. And,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
What show are we talking about?
Fresh and Fit.
Okay.
I actually have Myron's book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's actually a really good read.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, it's a really good read.
Interesting.
I should lend it to you. Let you read it.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Why Women Deserve Less. Very inflammatory title. But if you actually read the book, he's not talking about women deserving less. Right. He's talking about men providing less when they're not getting it in return.
Right. And that's where I'm okay with the idea of the red pill community. Like, hey, let's show you how to be confident men, how to be go-getters, how to be businessmen, how to be a high value man. And if that's where it stopped, I'd be 100% on board. The problem is kind of how they then go, well, now you're a high value man, you can sleep around. Yeah. And it's like, but that's not, number one, it's not healthy for a society.
No.
Overall, but number two, that's also not protecting women.
No, it's
not. And it's also not protecting men because studies show the more sexual partners you have, the less you can pair bond with a potential spouse.
Well,
and for men, we tend to think, well, we're less attached, and that is somewhat true, but at some point that happens to men too.
So you're 100% at some point.
Yeah.
The difference is pair bonding for women, when they have sexual partners that exceed about 7, their pair bonding drastically drops.
Right.
Whereas men, typically their sexual partners are into the hundreds, sometimes thousands before that actually happens. So the difference is extreme.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you were talking about there. Men are a little bit less attached. Women are more of an emotional creature. Men are more logical creatures.
Right.
So yes, you are right. There is a negative effect on pair bonding for men.
Yes.
But that number is much greater
sure
than women.
Sure. But again, if we're trying to operate a healthy society and protect children and protect women, which I think as men, that should be our highest value. Protecting children and protecting women.
Well, I 100% agree with you. But by me saying that,
Right.
I'm just speaking the facts. I'm
Right.
not advocating in any way, shape, or form that that's what should happen.
And I didn't think you were.
Because my original stance, my original argument is I like the saying, I understand the saying,
Yes.
but I don't agree with it.
Right.
And the reasoning why is because your number one job when you're in a relationship with a woman is to provide and protect her.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
That is all you should be focusing on is how do I get her the things that she needs and wants, and how do you make sure she is safe and cared for?
Yeah.
And you cannot do the second one if you're out sleeping with other women.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. What's your perspective? What do you want when it comes to a potential future husband or boyfriend?
She's not going to answer this question. No.
No.
It was a good attempt.
Trying to get some
Because he's in
involvement.
here.
Yeah.
Hey,
Dad's around, so she's not going to answer that one. I'm surprised she knew what we were going to talk about. I'm surprised she actually wanted to come onto the show.
Well, maybe if
I'm
maybe
just
if you
spacing out.
maybe if you plugged your ears, maybe
Yeah,
she'll.
maybe.
Yeah.
Earmuffs.
Yeah.
You can still hear me.
So it is an interesting perspective that you have, though, too, because you are religious.
Yes.
So you have a facet in dating that is very important to you, which
Yeah.
is she has to have similar belief.
Yes. And that's something that kind of is more recent for me, even when I was a Christian before. And just a quick summary. Grew up Christian, walked away from my faith, kind of lived out in the world, drinking, going out and partying, doing that sort of stuff, and then came back to faith a little later. But even in my Christian walk before, I was so enthralled with the idea of love, I almost didn't care if she was a believer or not. I didn't care if she wanted kids or not. Hey, what do you want? Like, I want you, and then we'll figure out the rest of that later. And then, as, I lived life and didn't treat women properly and didn't treat myself properly, that then brought in wisdom, and it was years of mistakes and living stupidly. And now, hey, yeah, you having the same faith system, that's important to me. You wanting kids, that's important. Hey, if you can't have kids, that's fine. What about adoption? What about foster care? What about some of these, like, how much do you value family? Like, those are questions before I wouldn't even dare to ask them. And now, like, that's first date type of conversation. And I know it's not the way to spit game, but for me, it's like, what am I looking for? I'm looking for something long term. I'm not looking to date around anymore.
But you said it earlier. You're dating with intention now,
Yes.
which changes things drastically.
Absolutely.
It also makes your dating pool
Yes.
very small.
Especially in small town Idaho, it is very difficult. Yes.
100%. So you brought up something that I thought was really interesting, which is you were talking about family and whatnot, and you were talking about if they can't have children, adoption and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch to me for a second.
Sure.
I already have 3 children.
Yeah.
Um,
And one amazing one.
yeah, my little guy. He's the most amazing one.
Did he bring you in all your subscribers?
Oh gosh.
Serious question.
There.
You got some trouble on your hands.
I know. So when I'm looking for a partner,
Sure.
I'm not necessarily concerned with the family aspect because I
Yeah.
already had the family aspect.
Right.
If they're interested in me, they're going to be stepping into the family already.
Right.
So mine's already kind of self-answered.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm also in a position where I'm more free-flowing, so if I'm dating someone and we're talking getting married or whatever, and they want to have children, cool.
Yeah.
I'm open to it.
Yeah.
If they don't want to have children, cool. I'm open to that too.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm in a unique position.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say unique. I'm sure there's lots of men out there that are in this position, but I'm not. At one point, I was thinking of getting a vasectomy. And then I realized, like, well, no. If I ever date again, and I'm dating someone without children, and they want children
Of their own. Yeah.
of their own, with me, it'd be very selfish of me to say, oh, well, if you want to be with me, you cannot have any children. Right. You know,
that's out the window. Yeah.
So
just a quick question. Are you necessarily looking for somebody who has kids of her own, or do you tend to shy away from that as having your own kids already?
My personal take on this is my preference would be someone without kids.
Right.
But I'm open to someone that would, you know,
right.
that wouldn't have been off the table.
Right.
My preference would have been no children.
Sure. And that's sort of my preference too. But again, as we get older, those options aren't quite as open to us. You know, and that's sort of that balance of like, okay, what are some firm things that I really stand firm on, and then what am I willing to be flexible about?
So maybe we should change this. What are you looking for in a woman? Number one, obviously, belief.
Yes.
Number two, what would be your second item on your list? Open to family?
I think family is very important to me,
okay.
Especially at this stage in my life. Yeah.
Okay.
And if she has her own kids, that's fine with me. And if she doesn't have the ability to have any more kids, again, getting closer to my age, that's fine with me as well. Mm-hmm. You know, because my family kind of, through the benefit of people fostering and adoption and stepfather stepping up, mm-hmm. is kind of why I am where I am. So it would never be a thing where if I can't have my own children that I would necessarily say no. But it is something that, hey, if it's on the table, yeah, I would love to have kids of my own.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But other than that, hey, you know, politics, obviously, pretty important that we see at least somewhat eye to eye, but I legitimately most of the first two, when it comes to faith and family, those are the biggest things. Everything else, it's like, all right, we can figure some of this out. We can have some discussions.
Can compromise.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, right. Because you're not gonna find someone that's gonna align with you on everything that you're looking for.
Right.
You're gonna want to make compromises.
Well, and it'd be crazy for me to expect that too.
Yeah.
And also, who wants to date somebody exactly like them?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think, my answer to this is, faith is not necessarily as important to me.
Sure.
More or less as, well, you and I have had this discussion offline. Yeah. Like, yes, there is some sort of higher power. What that higher power is, I don't get into the dogmatic belief systems, right, like that structured system. But I think what's important to me is someone that is feminine. And what I mean by that is someone that is not going to yell, is not going to cause drama,
right,
that's respectful,
sure,
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I think the next important thing is someone that has drive, mm-hmm, and intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think those have to go hand in hand.
What does drive mean?
Someone that wants something from life, right?
Okay.
Now, that could be in the form of family. Mm-hmm. Preferably, it would be in the form of family.
Yeah.
Just because in a lot of ways I view it that this is actually more from Fresh and Fit's standpoint as well, which I don't disagree with on this one, which is the world's it's a stupid place. And if you don't have to go out in it and you don't have to deal with the creeps, the men that are trying to get at you, that degrade you.
Right.
If you don't have to go do that, you don't have to get those scars on you.
Yeah.
I will more than happy to go out in the world and take every single piece of abuse as long as I know you're safe.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So to me, family is important.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the drive that I'm looking for. However, if they're driven for career-wise, wanting to leave a better life for the children, mm-hmm, or for their family, that is hugely important to me as well.
Sure. And again, with the economy, as we talked about before, you know, you almost kind of need two people bringing in an income anymore. But
well, I mean, that goes back to like Fresh and Fit. If you're high status enough,
right,
you can find someone. Luckily for me, I am comfortable enough where I could support an entire family on my own.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you know, but yes, most people can't do that this day and age. You have to have dual incomes.
Yeah.
So,
thanks a lot, Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those were kind of the big ones that I'd be looking for.
Yeah. And honestly, I look back at some of the reasons that I disqualified relationships over the stupidest things. Like when I was young and had all this potential out in front of me and was still very desirable. Not that it decreases as you get older, folks, just so you're aware.
Not for men.
Well, I don't have as many girls looking my way as used to. But all of that to say, it's that sort of mentality of just like, oh, well, this one didn't work out. Let's try another one. Or like, hey, this girl doesn't like sushi. I love sushi. There's no way. What am I going to do? Sneak off and have a sushi meal without her? And now I don't even eat sushi. And it's like, if I could go back to 22-year-old me and just smack some sense into him, I absolutely would. Because, when you... and I'm not saying this is the case for anybody else, but in my life, I treated women more as a commodity, and I didn't treat them as unique people. I was kind of into dating, and that was what I wanted. Like, hey, let's enjoy one another for however long that lasts. And the value wasn't behind the person themselves. And for that's probably one of the biggest regrets I have is not seeing them for who they are.
I kind of want to push back on you, though. Why would you want to go back and correct yourself at 22? You weren't valuable at 22.
Because there was quick story. So I worked at Blue Lakes Country Club. Oops, I might be revealing too much already. I was dating somebody at the time, and there was another girl who if I would have broken up with the first girl, I would have been able to probably date.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, I was like, well, I'll just stick with the girl I'm with, and turns out she ended up cheating on me. Anyway, so cut to, I don't know, 5 years later, I'm scrolling through TV in South Carolina, minding my own business, and this girl who I had the potential to date was on TV. And I flipped through and I went, wait, what? And I flipped back. Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And it was her, and they put her name up on the screen, and I looked and I went, there's no way. And my friend, the guy who got me the job at the country club, we were talking about it after I saw him every time I see him. Since then, he's like, hey, remember that time you could have dated a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader? And I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you for continually reminding me of that. So there are opportunities where it's like, man, get your stuff together. Stop being hung up on this person who treats you like garbage. And everybody in your life says that she treats you like garbage. And but invest in this girl who's beautiful, who's humble, who loves Jesus, and who will treat you right for all intents and purposes. And it's not because she was a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, but she had so much more going for her. But I didn't see enough value in myself at that age.
Yep. Well, that's what I was getting at.
Right.
You were 22.
Right.
So most, how to say it, women are born with value.
Yes.
And their job, the way I see it, women are born with value. Their job is to preserve that value. Mm-hmm. Men are born with no value. We have to create value. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not valued as a human.
Right.
What I'm saying is in the sexual marketplace or the dating marketplace, women, when they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, the world is their oyster.
Sure.
Men do not start hitting their prime until they're 30, typically.
Sure.
It takes men a long time to get the status that they need, to develop a career, to get respect amongst peers, to become financially stable, to provide for a woman. So at 22, you shouldn't even be trying to find a long-term committed partner. You should be working on making sure that you're building yourself so that when you're 30, you can provide the best life for your committed partner.
Well, and that's where I just go, hey, do we have these fundamentals in common? Do we have faith in common? Do we have family in common? Do we have these values in common? Then realistically, it doesn't matter at what age you get married. And honestly, again, I had more girls interested in me when I had less money and was younger. When I was 22 to 26, man, I beat them off with a stick, sort of an analogy. Now it's harder for me to find that. And maybe it's the places I hang out with, maybe it's the crowd. But even if I were to go to those places, I don't have the same sexual appeal that I did before when I was younger. And so that's where, you know, if you find somebody at the right age who's compatible with you, you can grow together in that dynamic of the power dynamic of being high value with one another. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you build on your own separately and then you bring somebody into that picture. It can be something that you link arms with somebody and you start building together from even a young, not super young, but, you know, early 20s, mid 20s age, and you grow in that together. And I think that's a good biblical picture of what marriage can look like as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with the thought process.
Sure.
I think any marriage, any time that you're with someone in a committed relationship,
Yeah.
you are linking arms and you are growing and building together.
Right.
What I'm saying is I believe that you have a higher value to attract a better partner when you are already established.
And that is probably true. But again, 26 years old, going back to the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader girl. I don't want anybody else but her. Like, Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders hot is good enough for me. And if we're going to build a family, I don't need to be high value to anybody else. I just need to be high value to her. And that high value is me being all those things for just her and not for anybody else.
I don't disagree with
Yeah.
you there. I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
I think we're talking the same coin, just opposite
Yes.
sides, right?
Yes.
We're both saying that you're still going to have to do the provisioning. You're still going to have to do the providing, the protection, all that stuff. You're just saying that you could start it earlier, and I'm saying
Sure.
you're better off already having something established.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think could be one of the biggest dating mistakes ever for a man and a woman after?
For a man, biggest mistake, I think you nailed it on the head. Investing in a woman that does not actually respect you.
Sure.
Statistically speaking, women cheat at a rate much greater than men. I know everyone likes to say that men are the cheaters.
Right.
No, men just get caught cheating much more than women do.
Because we're dumb.
Because we are dumb. Women are much better at hiding things.
She should not be shaking her head and agreeing as much.
She knows. So
It's all him.
she knows.
Yes.
Men do not cheat at rates as women cheat. Men just get caught more.
Yes.
So I think that's the biggest mistake men make is continuing to invest in a woman that does not actually return the investment to you.
Right. And it's funny because the woman who did cheat on me, she did end up being a high value woman after all, who she, with the person that she ended up being with, but I wasn't at a place where I saw enough value in myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And to me, that doesn't necessarily have to do with career, money, or status. It is, if you don't love yourself, if you don't see value in yourself before you get the money and the fame, you're going to be insecure even with it. And so that's where, for me, it's like the things that she would do, I stood for, because I was like, well, I'm not going to get anything better than that. Well, this is as good as it's going to be for me. But the man I am today, no, you're not going to treat me that way. You will not. Look, I love you and I care about you. We can have a discussion, but you're not going to run over me. You're not going to treat me that way.
You know what? You kind of just brought up a point that I think is actually very valuable that I look for in a woman as well, which is the simple fact that when there is an issue in the relationship, being open to the conversation, that is actually hugely attractive.
Yeah.
And every relationship has problems. But what is attractive to me personally is that's a sign of being coachable, right?
Yeah.
Your partner in the relationship is coaching you because
Right.
they have a set expectation from you.
Sure.
So they're going to help you define, or they're going to help mold you into their best version, what they're looking for.
Right.
And the same is vice versa. Men are going to coach women into what's acceptable inside the relationship as well.
Yeah.
And the simple fact that if they're open and are communicative, then that is hugely attractive for that relationship. That's very important in someone, because things are going to arise as you progress in life.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be able to talk.
Open communication is the biggest reason relationships fail. People say it's money. People say it's, cheating. I think it's a failure to communicate. And it's a failure of, here's what I like about you. And here's what here's some stuff that kind of drives me up a wall. And just being fair and honest about it. And instead of hiding it and, well, I'm not going to bring it up to them. And then that's where you start internalizing it. And instead of communicating it with them, you start internalizing it amongst yourself.
That to me is more insecure. If you're not comfortable bringing up an issue, that is a sign of insecurity, more so than what most women like to accuse men of being insecure. Like, you're insecure that I have this, or that I talk to this, or that I do this, or not. I'm not insecure that you're doing that. I'm letting you know that I'm secure enough in our relationship that I'm comfortable enough to talk to you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
It's kind of a interesting dynamic, but that also kind of goes back into a little bit of the biblical stuff, which is men and women are opposites.
Yeah.
We view things differently. We do things differently, and that's why it requires both of us in marriage, in the family unit, to raise a healthy child.
Yeah. And realistically, the girl who did cheat on me, if I would have been the right kind of man before I started dating her, who knows what would have happened if I would have been able to communicate, because I was so terrified. Well, I think I don't have any proof, but she seems distant. There's weird stuff happening. And instead of communicating, I thought, well, if I communicate, that could be the end of the relationship. And I was so scared of losing the relationship that's what mattered to me more than being upfront and honest and saying, hey, something's going on here.
100%.
And I think when we're afraid to communicate, and when we put the relationship itself up on a pedestal, man, that's danger territory. It's like, you have to be willing to walk away from it and lose it, even if you've spent time, even if you've invested. And having that open, clear communication is the key.
I 100% agree with you. Like I said, I was divorced, and one of the biggest things that we ran into was the communication.
Yeah.
And then I really wasn't looking to get married or find someone or anything like that, so it was just all fun and games for me.
Yeah.
And then that is one thing that as I was made me afraid is when you get back into a relationship, do you want, or that relationship starts to mean so much, you start shutting down and you don't ask the questions that you should be asking. And it's something that has to be asked. Yeah. Right. I'm 100% agreeing with you. You have to be willing to risk losing that relationship in order for that relationship actually to thrive.
Absolutely. And they'll respect you more for it. They will absolutely look and go, you know what, he cares. And that shows that this matters to him.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think just assuming things about other people, or assuming, well, this is my background, so it must be the same for everybody, I think that gets us in trouble in every relationship we have. In friendships, in business partnerships, in everything. It's unmet expectations that destroy relationships.
100%. So I told you we'd get to, I'm sorry, what was your question?
I didn't have a question.
Oh, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
How do I put this thing back up? Okay.
You're fine. Go ahead.
I think that it's important for men to, one, be nice and like not be mean.
Okay.
Like some men. And for women, I think that it's important for them to like not be like, I'm gonna go out and like all the time. I feel like they should like help a little bit, like family part, like
okay.
Yeah, I feel like they shouldn't just be like putting it all on the man. I think they should be helping a little bit with some things.
100%.
Yeah.
So when I say that the man goes out in the world and does the work, that doesn't mean the woman is not doing anything. That means the woman is
Staying
making
home
the
with
bigger
her children,
She's actually
hopefully.
making the bigger sacrifice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because the family unit is much more important than the crap that you deal with in the real world.
Right. And you know, as a Christian man, would I prefer you know, typical gender roles for her to be would I like to be financially well off enough for her to not have to work, for her to work if she wants to, but to not have to work?
Yep.
Absolutely. But, you know, it's part of the reality of what we're dealing with today, and I think both people knowing their place when you're both competing to try to win the bread, so to speak, it can kind of cause some confusion and some roles sort of being reversed, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, I think you know, if women want to work, more power to them. But as men, should I do everything I can to make sure that you have the freedom, but you don't have the obligation to work? Yeah,
100%. I agree with that.
yeah,
Your choice to work is just that. It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement.
right.
If you want extra spending money, cool, get a job.
Yeah,
But if you want just the bare necessities, or you just want to have a comfortable life, you don't have to work either. You know?
or hey, if you want to buy me some nice stuff and spoil me on Amazon, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. All right, so we're at 41. We're gonna go ahead and end it.
Perfect.
I like this conversation. Yeah, it was a good conversation. So, all right, till next time. Thank you for watching. Till next time.
Peace.